Hello, everyone, and a very warm welcome to everyone who's joining us today from across the world. Is your resume hurting your chances of getting into a business school of choice? Today, we are going to talk about what business schools look for in their resume, in your resume, and how you can make it effective to strengthen your candidacy. Now, we are just about 4 weeks away from the first set of round one deadlines. And some of you must be working on your applications already. Why don't you let us know if you're already working on your applications? You've kind of completed the resume section, or you're still in the process of doing your resume. Give me a thumbs up if your resume has been written. If not, give me a thumbs down in the comment section. Right. So I'm Anju Goyala. I'm a senior MBA admissions consultant with a red pen.
And I am Manan. Again, I am a consultant with the Red Pen.
So why is an MBA resume important in the application process? What typically happens is that adcoms look at past performance as an indicator of future success. And the resume is a synopsis of your personal, professional, and academic journey till the point of application. Therefore, it becomes really important. Now, the resume is normally the first document that adcoms look at before they review the entire application. Therefore, it is important to present a strong version of yourself and to make a good and strong impression. What the resume also does is provides context about all your experiences, again, personal, professional, academic, your hobbies, interests. And what it also does is, links your work experience, pre-MBA work experience, to your post-MBA goals. Again, a very critical component of the application. It standardizes evaluation. What it essentially does is facilitates peer comparison on equal grounds. What it also does is make information frame information in an accessible timeline, which essentially means that your personal, professional, and academic milestones are framed chronologically, which helps the adcom, track your journey, see your growth, progression over the years. So let's talk about some resume essentials, some do's and don'ts, and you can take a screenshot of this and use it as a guide to frame your resume. Typically, an MBA application resume is 1 page long, unless you're applying to an executive MBA program where the thumb rule is 1 page for every 10 years of work experience. The resume is divided into 3 sections: your work experience, education, and additional information section, also leadership initiatives. The resume is framed in bullet points. Now, for me, a bullet point does not exceed 2 lines. If it exceeds 2 lines, it becomes a paragraph, right? The bullet points also have to be framed in the star format for better structure and impact. What it essentially means is that you highlight the scope of the project, your contribution to the project, and the resultant outcome, quantified if possible. Now, quantifying outcomes and achievements is extremely important. You can quantify it in figures or percentage, whatever relevant or convenient. The bullet points in the resume, especially in the work section, should be aligned to your goals. Like I mentioned earlier, what you've done pre-MBA should be linked to what you're going to do post your MBA. To me, I normally compare the resume to the 30 minutes highlight of a one-day cricket match or a football match. So what happens when you watch the highlights? You don't get a minute-by-minute account of what happened during the match. You get the highlights, the main events that occurred during the match. And that's what your resume is. You cannot encapsulate everything that you've done and achieved, over 3, 4, 5, 6 years that you worked in half a page. And I say half a page, the other half is used for your education and additional information. So you need to be very prudent about using real estate. Real estate on the resume is very critical. Now, how do you decide what is important, and which project should you put to on the resume? There are certain filters that I normally use, and those are the ones that you should look at to decide the projects and assignments that you should plug into the resume. Um, Look at the project's size and scale, and the complexity of executing the project, right? Look at the scale of impact that you're creating through the assignments or projects that you're doing. Now, why is this important? Business schools are looking for business leaders who can not only solve problems, but solve problems at scale. So if you're able to show that, it works in your favor. You also need to try and showcase diversity in professional experience and skills. Um, Let me give you an example. If you are an auditor and you say, I audited company 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in bullet points 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it really isn't telling the AdCom anything about you except the fact that you're doing your job. What you need to do is talk about the different kinds of things that you've done at your workplace. Now, if your work is very repetitive and you do the same thing, or if your function is fairly standardized, then you can talk about how you do things differently, within that function, for different clients, for different demographics that you serve, you know, to showcase variety in what you do. Also, in terms of skills, it is important to highlight diverse skills like leadership, collaboration, teamwork, analytical skills, communication abilities, your mentorship skills. These are the things that schools look for. So while we don't frame bullets saying, oh, this is a leadership bullet and this is a collaboration bullet, we try and showcase it, through the narrative that we build. And we're going to talk about this in a little bit. A little bit of housekeeping. There are certain things that you should really be mindful of and pay attention to. The formatting of the resume is very important. Sometimes schools give you specific directions on how to format a resume. They may give you a font size, a particular font to use, uh, you know, uh, mm, the gaps that you should have between bullets. So be mindful of that and look at school specific requirements. Always PDF your resume before uploading it on the application form, so that your formatting does not get distorted, unless of course otherwise specified by a school. Now, cultural nuances. Well, would somebody like to tell me what I'm talking about when I refer to cultural nuances? Would anyone like to talk about how we need to be mindful of cultural nuances? Okay, so here's the thing. We need to be mindful of certain sensibilities and the way we frame, certain things. For instance, in my geography, which is India, we have a tendency to say, I passed out of class 10, I passed out of class 12, I passed out of college. Now, in the Western milieu, in the US, in Europe, passing out refers to fainting. So, it's better to say, I graduated from, I graduated school, I graduated college. So you need to be mindful of how, certain phrases or certain expressions are perceived in the geography where you're applying. Also, few things to avoid. Do not underline, highlight, put in bold, or color any parts of your resume. Please do not do that. It's a complete no no, right? While I understand that there may be certain parts where you feel are important to you and you may want to highlight it, the adcom will look at and read your entire resume. There is no need to draw their attention to certain things. The other thing that you should avoid is using jargon and technical language. Please remember that ADCOMs receive applications from across the board. Uh, Applicants come from very different backgrounds, industries, functions, and it's not possible for ADCOMs to know everything about every industry, every function, every background. So simplify jargon, avoid using technical language. And a big no no is fabricating information or falsifying information. Please do not fabricate anything on your resume, in fact, the rest of the application, or falsify any information. Remember, if you get an admit, schools do a background check. Right. Now, this is a workshop on resumes. So let's look at an actual resume. This is a resume that was submitted to us by a client of ours who eventually went to Wharton. And I'm going to show you what we did with this resume. So you can see it is framed and formatted very, very differently from the original resume. Here we've bucketed all the bullet points into three distinct segments: the professional experience, education, and additional information. We've made the bullets a lot more concise and compact. We've highlighted impact, quantified outcomes and achievements, and also another important thing, we've asked the candidate to split the bullets between various roles. So this candidate has worked in three roles in this organization, and we asked him to split the bullets in the under those three roles. What this does is this helps the adcoms get a sense of where you were 2 or 3 or 4 years back when you joined the organization and where you are today. How have you grown, not just in terms of designation, but also in terms of your roles and responsibilities, the complexity of work that you handle, the size of the teams that you monitor or handle, and how you've kind of progressed in your role professionally. I'm now going to ask Manan to talk to you about we're going to take every segment separately, and Manan is going to talk about transforming the personal details section, and also, how to use the star format to frame the bullet points.
Right. Thank you, Anju. So yeah, before I dive in, guys, if you're liking our workshop, you're finding it useful, I'd really appreciate if you can like our workshop, drop in a comment, share it with your friends or someone that you think potentially could benefit from it. We'd really appreciate it. Okay, now diving in. So personal details. So this is the first part of your resume, essentially, right at the top of your resume. So here you will see there's a before and after, like how was it earlier written and how we've transformed it in an after version. So essentially what you need to understand from the personal details is that here because a resume is a one-page document, so real estate on the document is very, very precious. So essentially you should keep this section very, very concise. You don't need to allocate a lot of space to it. So just details like your name, your contact information, like your mobile number, your email ID, and a LinkedIn link is enough. You don't need to put in details like your date of birth or maybe your location, etc. I mean, those are details that your adcom would have from an application anyway. So you just keep this very concise. Also, you don't need to really include any sort of a summary in the in the beginning. A lot of times we have summaries in job resumes, and often what it helps us to do is that it often has keywords which are relevant to that job search, and it helps in helping you get better traction or discoverability for your job search. But that's not the case in a B school application. Here you're applying for a business school, and here the resume, you don't really need to use any space on the summary and actually utilize it for the more important sections that will come up next. Yeah. All right. So, now let's talk about the star method a little more in detail. Anju already sort of, discussed the star method in a little bit of, she gave like a, brief about it already. So let's just sort of dive into it. So essentially star method, what it does is, so whenever you're writing any bullet, right, we would recommend that, you should look at that bullet from a star framework, right? And what does star stand for? Situation, task, action, result, right? It basically gives you a framework to think about how can you craft your bullet. So, what are the important points in any bullet? You should be looking to discuss what is the contribution you've made or what are the actions you took, what was the result of your work or the impact you created, and you should try to quantify that impact and essentially provide the context and the scope of your work, right? Which is the situation, the task. So in this case, if I read this example here, conceptualized and executed a targeted sales campaign that yielded an increase of X US dollars in new product sales. So essentially, we started with a very strong action work, conceptualized and executed. We highlight what was the impact of the work. There was an increase in sales of a certain amount, essentially as a result of this sales campaign. So this is how you should essentially be looking to highlight your contribution and your impact, right? Another thing that I want to talk about in this part is how can you showcase impact, right? So impact can be showcased in multiple ways, right? Financial impact is not the only way to showcase, that you've done something which has added value. So it could be impact could be seen in different ways. So it could be a financial impact, like for example, increase in revenue, cost savings. It could be operational impact, efficiency improvement, man hours reduction of a certain process. It could be customer satisfaction score has improved, retention has improved, right? So the metric could be anything, but the idea is that you need to see what are the relevant metrics which essentially align with the sort of work that you do, and then you should be looking to quantify the impact through those metrics. So here, if you see three examples here, very briefly, if I sort of just run you through them. So the first example showcases an impact in terms of the time reduction, like the dashboard helped them reduce the turnaround time from 7 days to 1 hour. Second is a productivity related impact, that how they monitored the SLA of over 150 plus um, processes, and it helped achieve, it helped in the KPI achievement of 2.7%. So a productivity improvement. Or for example, you acquired 50 new clients within a 6-month period, resulting 30% in revenue, increase in revenue. So again, you are highlighting, along with the increase in revenue, you're also highlighting that you acquired 50 new clients. That's also a way to show that you actually made an impact. So yeah, so think of what are the possible ways by which I can showcase an impact and quantify that.
Manan, there's a question here.
Yes.
It says, I have tried to keep my points brief regarding the star format. Since you're talking about the star format, I've
Yes.
tried to keep my points brief using the PAR method and managed to keep it to a single line without using the star method, because the star, they feel, increases the bullet length and increases the length overall.
Right. So, see, one of the things that I would say is that, like Anju mentioned in the towards the beginning of the slides, that you should, like, potentially you should not have a bullet longer than 2 lines. So, I feel that a well-crafted bullet can be incorporated within 2 lines, and there you can have information about what were the actions you took, what was the impact you made, and the sort of, and like describe the context around your project. So I think that's what I would want to say, that you don't need to keep it to a single line, because if I understand your question correctly, you are trying to keep the bullet to a single line, and that's and and uh, and in general, what I would generally see is most of the bullets actually would potentially run into the second line. So you don't need to be worried about having a bullet which is longer than 1 line, and anything that is until 2 lines is perfectly fine and acceptable. And yeah, so
I'll
as long
just
as you
add
are
to
able to
that.
contain it within 2 lines. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I'll just add to that. You can see in the example, it is running into a second line, but it is, it gives you clarity about the project, what exactly was the candidate's role in the project, and very specific quantified outcomes. You know, so if you can, you should use the star format. Um, Keeping, it's not essential to keep a bullet to one line. Okay, it can go into the second line, really. And as I said, you're probably trying to keep it to one line so that you can include a lot of bullets. But I would focus on quality over quantity. Look at the filters that I spoke about earlier to decide what you should, plug into the resume. Right. Let's get into the work experience section. This is the professional experience section. And, we have an example of what was given to us by the candidate, the original draft, and then the modified draft. Right. As you can see, of course, before I get into the changes that were made, mm, here the candidate is working for a company like Goldman Sachs. So if you see, we've asked him to mention the company, the location where he was working or where he is working, his designation, his role, and the timeline. The timelines are very important. So he's mentioned Jan 2023 to present. So this is his present role before going into the bullets. Now, what has happened if you read his bullets? Again, very long, little confusing, no focus on outcomes, and we've made it a lot more compact. We've made it a lot more concise, and we've brought out the impact. But what we've also done is, and if you look carefully, and we've highlighted those sections. Please do not, this is only for presentation purposes. When you do the actual resume, please do not highlight anything. Okay. So what we've done is we've asked him to use action words like led, developed, designed, collaborated, optimized. What does this show you about the candidate when he talks about, leading a project or collaborating on a project? It showcases his leadership and collaboration skills. When he talks about developing and designing certain things, it talks about his initiative and subject matter expertise. When he talks about optimizing something, he talks about, it showcases a result and a performance focused approach. Okay. You can also see vis-a-vis the original draft. The modified draft also has very specific quantified outcomes, which give the reader and the adcom a sense of what the person has achieved and the scale of what the person has achieved. Right. Okay, so here is a so the first example was for a candidate who is working for an organization. Now this is again the professional section for a candidate who is who has a startup. The person is a co-founder and business head for a certain startup. What we've also asked the person to do here is, besides mentioning the company, his role, and the time frame, during which he's been working there, we've asked the person to describe the company in one line. Okay, and this is important. It wasn't essential for Goldman Sachs because it's a well-known company, but this is a small startup. So if you're working for a company that is not very well known or is a startup, it's a good practice to describe the company, the scope and size of its operations, the countries that it operates in, its revenue, the number of employees that it has, so that it gives the adcom some context. Now, here what for an entrepreneur, the kind of skills that you're going to highlight are very different from a profession. Not very different, but you need to have certain additional skills. An entrepreneur, of course, needs to show initiative, entrepreneurial abilities, and ability to handle challenges, to be able to negotiate, to be able to drive results, achieve a revenue. And we've helped this candidate do all of that. So if you see the before and after, you can make out that, it's again, the information, sorry, the information is here, but the information is put in a way where it is not very clear, where there is a lack of focus. So again, we've helped the person put bullet points in the star format. where we've spoken about things that he would essentially do as a startup owner, develop products, achieve certain revenue, develop a diligence analytics platform, co-found certain things, achieve certain results, drive certain negotiations. You can go over all the things that have been highlighted to kind of differentiate him and bring out his skills and strengths. Manan, would you like to talk about our top
Yes. Anju, we have a question in the comments that
Yeah, what
you
if a
want to.
bullet point was of 1.5 lines? Shouldn't be. All right. So you're talking about white spaces. Ravi, it's not essential to fill every space in the resume. It's perfectly fine if it ends at 1.5 lines. There's no problem. If it says what it is meant to say, if it conveys what it is meant to convey, and it is bringing out the impact of what the candidate has done and achieved, it's absolutely fine. You don't have to fill every white space. It will also tend to look very busy if you filled every empty space. Right, Manan?
Yes. All right. So now let's talk about just sort of recapping some of our top tips that you can that you should sort of apply when you're working on your professional section. So first is fitment. So essentially the idea is that when you're looking to highlight your experience, your skills, one of the things that you should also consider, which is very important, are your post MBA goals. So whatever post MBA goals that you are talking about, you should be thinking of highlighting specific experiences, specific skills which will be relevant to that post MBA goal. Basically, transferable skills, relevant experiences. What that does is it also, one is of course it shows your preparedness for that goal. Also, it increases confidence, in the adcom or in the reader who's seeing your resume that this person can potentially achieve their post MBA goals because they already are there, almost there. They need our MBA to bridge some sort of a gap, and then they can use it to achieve their short-term goals. So you should highlight transferable skills and relevant experiences which will align with the post MBA goals. Another is skill range. So again, you should be looking to talk about. You should be looking to showcase a diverse skill set, right? So in terms of soft skills, skills across like leadership, collaboration, stakeholder management, analytical skills, communication skills, negotiation. So essentially, it showcases a wider spectrum of your skill set, and that's something that will also not keep your resume very monotonous. It will show a variety of the sort of experiences and the sort of skills that you have. Prioritization, so you should be looking to like one of the ways how you can think of prioritization is also like some of the work that you've done which is client facing. You can consider putting that you can put that first in the order, and you can put some of your projects which are more back office, or sort of more process oriented back office sort of work that you can keep for on a lower priority order. Other than like other ways to think of prioritizations, of course, think of the scale of the project, the sort of impact that you've created in that project, and you should be prioritizing them over the other projects. Editing, again, coming back to the point that we have a limited space, so you cannot include everything on your resume. So don't feel obliged to include each and every project or work assignment that you have worked on. Again, pick out the highlights, pick out the most impressive ones, the most relevant ones, and those are the ones that you should be looking to highlight. And you can sort of exclude the more non-strategic sort of work that you're involved in.
Right. Manan, there is a question here which I would like to answer. Michelle
Absolutely.
says that she works in VC. How can I portray impact or results? Because the investments I make will be exited in the future, or I can't state that I have achieved any results, XYZ results. She continues to say, a lot of my work is qualitative and not easy to quantify, involving building subsectoral thesis, which is a long process. How do I present this and the best present this in the best manner possible, because I have no numbers to back it up per se. It's a very good question, Michelle. It is something that candidates ask us all the time. Sometimes there are people who are in a back or a mid office role, and their work feeds into, the front office or somebody else's work or somebody else's module, and they're not creating direct impact. Sometimes, the work that candidates do has a qualitative impact. Michelle, if your work has a qualitative impact, mention the qualitative impact. Everything doesn't have to be quantified. It's perfectly fine to have a qualitative impact. It can be as simple as, motivating the team, or doing certain things that raise team morale. Okay, it's not something that you can quantify, but it showcases that, you are a team player, you contribute to the team, you are, you kind of want everybody to succeed, and therefore there are certain things that you do. The second thing that you can do is, now, when sometimes, there are certain things in the pipeline, like in your case, you make certain investments. There may be certain investments that may have reached fruition, which means that you might have exited, and you can showcase quantitative outcomes there. Okay. The amount, how the company, how the investors benefited, at the point of exiting. Otherwise, what happens is, when you work on a project, when things are in the pipeline, um, whenever you do a project or an assignment, there's always a stated project goal. All right. And you can benchmark against that goal and say that, our expectation is to make an X amount of money, or achieve an X amount of X outcome in the next 2 years or 3 years or 5 years. Okay, it's perfectly fine to say that. Talk about potential impact. Okay. Whenever you do something, it's never, when you make an investment, you will have, some benchmark in your mind. You don't just make an investment. You might exceed it, you might achieve it, you might underachieve it. That's absolutely fine, and that is something that you will know only at a future point. Okay, so go ahead and mention, the potential impact that you hope to create. um, Ravi says, my job responsibilities do not include any kind of projects or repetitive role. How to showcase this kind of work experience? We'll take this up at a later stage. Let's just get on to the education sector. Manan, take it on from here.
Yeah. So here now, we'll discuss some of the, guidelines on how you can also create like a powerful education section. How can you create like a compelling education section in your resume? So again, you'll see a before and after here. So I'll just talk about, a few sort of tips that you can take away from you. One is that, if you have a strong academic, score in your undergrad, like, your strong CGPA, if you were ranked among the top students in your class, that's something that you should highlight in your resume. Like if you'll see here, if you have a CG of 8.8 out of 10, a rank 3 out of 50, that's something that you should showcase here, because it highlights your academic excellence, right? That's something that schools value. So, and you can showcase your rank. It could be an absolute rank, it could be in percentage, for example, top 5% in a class of 100 people. So some way of showcasing, that you are in the upper bracket of students. So that's something that you can highlight if you have a strong undergrad CGPA. Another things that we can look at here is, let's look at a couple of examples. Now, one of the examples here is about someone who's in the swing team and they have won multiple awards: best incoming sports person award, best outgoing sports person award. And now see how have we transformed that, right? So if I look at the third bullet under the sub bullets, the second sub bullet, one best outgoing sports person and best incoming sports person award among 800 students. So one is we've consolidated both the awards in a single bullet, so saving some precious space. And also we have put out a number and essentially put out the competition pool against which this person was competing, right? So this is what puts your achievement in context. It provides you the scale. Essentially, this is what makes it so much more impressive, right? That this person was the best sports person among 800 students. So again, mention those specific details, mention the scale, mention the comparative pool if you won something essentially, right? Another example let's look at is the mess secretary example. So if I see elected by 400 residents as a mess secretary in a new mess with 40 workers, now what's the problem here, right? What I don't see here is, other than the fact that this person was a mess secretary, what did they do there? What was their contribution? What did they achieve? Those things are not coming out, and that is what you essentially need to highlight. That is what schools value, right? Merely mentioning your title or the position you held is not enough. So if you again look at how we've sort of transformed that, the last bullet in after, elected as the inaugural mess secretary by 400 students, helped reduce food wastage by 10%. So again, look at the main sort of thing that we've introduced is what was his contribution, what did he achieve, right? So he essentially helped reduce the food wastage of his college by 10%. So again, that is what makes it impressive. That is what gives me an insight into what did this person do in their tenure as a mess secretary, what did they achieve. And again, we've quantified that impact in terms of 10% food wastage. So that is how you should be looking to essentially highlight the impact you've created, the scale of your work. Essentially, if you organize an event, for example, in your undergrad, talk about like the footfall there. If you've raised funds, how much funds did you raise for that event? What is the budget of the event? So talk about those things. Yeah.
I'll just add
All
another
right.
thing, two things
Yes.
here, Manan. One, remember that the MBA is an academic program. So show off your academic excellence. Show them your academic excellence. You are going there because it's an academic program and they want to see people who have strong academic credentials. So if you do have a high GPA, if you do, if you were amongst the top 1%, 2%, 10% of the class, do mention all of those things. Another thing, I'm just going to add to what Manan said. Just mentioning a designation, is not enough. Just being the mess secretary or the sports head does not convey anything. It does not convey leadership. It does not convey anything about you unless you back it up with what you've done in that role and achieved in that role.
Absolutely. Thank you, Anju. All right.
Manan,
So additional.
Manan, I just
Yeah.
want to, Michelle, I'm glad you found our inputs useful. Go ahead, Manan.
Yeah. All right. So now we'll talk about the last section of your resume, the additional information section, right? So this is potentially one section of your resume which is often, does not get the amount of attention that it should, right? Tends to get overlooked. But this is a section where essentially you get an opportunity to talk about, showcase a little bit more about your personality in terms of your interests, things that you care about outside of work, outside of your educational background, right? So this is again something which is important. This gives you, this essentially can humanize your resume. It can give you that unique, aspects which one person cannot replicate, right? So that those unique interests, those personality elements. So one example that I'll talk about here is, let's say, this person who volunteers at Prayas. So again, let's look at the before point here. So volunteer at Prayas ensured all-round development of underprivileged school students, right? So again, now what is the problem that I see here, right? The main problem that I see here is, while I get a little bit of a sense of what this person did as a volunteer, it's a little bit of a half-baked sort of a bullet. It does not give me a lot of extensive information into what did they really do, how many students did they work with. So let's look at the after. Volunteer prayers 6 hours a week. So first of the thing that you'll notice here is we've put out 6 hours a week. So this showcases the commitment that they have towards this cause, right? They are putting out 6 hours of every week, for this cause. So that showcases their commitment for a certain activity. Ensured all-round development of 15 underserved students by teaching them math, science, English, and organized cultural and sports activities. Again, now we've given them a scale, like, how many students did this person affect, right? 15 students they work with. And what exactly did they do in terms of development? There's more specific information here. They taught them certain subjects. They helped them in, cultural and sports activities. So that is what enriches your bullet. That is what gives it more specific information. So again, try to be as specific as possible. Don't have very generic bullets, right? Because that is what will, essentially people will remember about you. That is what will make your resume memorable.
It's a waste of space to put generic bullets. I'm just going to
Absolutely.
add something here. This is the last section in the resume. There are two or three things that we normally advise candidates to plug in here. One is your leadership initiatives outside of work. Two, any interests or hobbies. And three, any kind of social commitment. Okay. And social commitment can be within or outside the organization. So you can add both here. Now, there are a couple of questions, Manan, that we can answer at this point. Okay.
Absolutely.
Asked during my Re-Addicted AF says, during my tenure across different companies, I have always mentored or given workshop sessions. Do I put it in the work experience for that company or in the activities leadership section? All right. So you can actually you can actually you I would put mentorship and conducting workshops under the, if it is done within the aegis of a company, put it under the company role, right? Because it kind of then also helps you save space in the additional information section, where you don't have to mention that when I was in this company, this is what I did, right? So it kind of helps you control word count. I would put it in the employment section under the company where you are doing all of this. Ravi, you've asked a question which I'm not very clear about, but if I were to understand this correctly, you're saying that you do the kind of work where you do not have projects and assignments. I'm assuming you are probably into maybe you are a musician, or you are in the military, or you are doing or you are maybe into teaching or something, a kind of work where it is a little difficult to quantify what you do, because a lot of your outcomes are qualitative, as I explained to Michelle. Or you're in the manufacturing industry. In the manufacturing industry, it is easy to kind of what do you do in the manufacturing industry, Ravi? I will need to understand that. I'm going to go ahead while you put that. Okay. All right. So I'm just quickly going to walk through, the kind of, some of the things that you need to reflect on, certain soft skills and strengths that should be showcased and plugged into the resume. You know, any kind of mentoring or volunteering experiences, your leadership, teamwork, and collaboration skills. Remember, these three skills are non-negotiable. All schools across the board look for these skills in their candidates. Negotiation skills, of course, not all of will be relevant to you. Whatever is relevant to the work that you do. Stakeholder management, entrepreneurial skills, initiative, transferable skills. Specifically, I remember a lot of students come to business schools because they want to pivot careers. Now, in that case, it's very important to showcase, besides the reasons that Manan mentioned earlier, it's important to showcase transferable skills. What is it that you can take from what you've done so far to your post MBA role. Now, there are two things here that I would like to specifically talk about. International experience, very important to showcase. If you worked, overseas, or if you work with cross-border teams, or if you travel overseas to work with clients, or teams that are overseas, offshore teams, please do mention and highlight that. It showcases that you have the ability to work with a diverse set of people and diverse sensibilities, right? Persuasion and influencing. Schools want to see how you're able to persuade and influence others. Essentially, your leadership skills, right? They want to know why people should follow you. Remember, schools are creating leaders of the future, and they're not going to instill leadership skills in you from scratch. You need to be able to show that, and obviously, when you go to business school, you're going to hone those skills, build on those skills. Manan will not talk now talk about the LinkedIn piece, but before that, Manan, can we just see if we have any more questions? Okay, that we would like to
Yeah.
take.
I think
Mm,
just Ravi has just given some more detail about
yes.
his work.
Would you like to address that? Ravi has this. Ravi works
Uh,
in manufacturing and quality control, testing
Quality
of
control,
finishes,
finished
customer
goods and
queries.
customer queries. Right.
Huge, huge
So again
opportunity.
here,
Go ahead.
go ahead, Anju, go ahead.
No, Manan, go ahead. Please go ahead.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So, Ravi, I understand that if I get a sense that you are working in a testing quality sort of a role in the manufacturing industry, right? So here again, see you while your work in some cases would be repetitive, there would always be some initiatives that you would be involved in. It could be, let's say, there's a new product that's coming up that you are testing. Maybe you are analyzing the way that you test that you test a certain product, and you feel that that testing process is not very streamlined, and you worked on streamlining that or that testing or QC process. Customer queries, so maybe how the entire customer help desk works, like how you get a query from a customer and then the entire resolution of that process. What's the entire workflow? How much time do you take on average in sort of responding to a particular query? I mean, those are aspects in which you should look at whether there were initiatives that you were a part of. You
So
should
if you're a
actively
part of,
also, yeah, you should also actively, wherever you see a scope of improvement in your work, you should take initiative and work on, you should propose taking, steps to work on initiatives as well. Yeah, Anju.
so what happens with quality control, Ravi, is that you have the opportunity to control quality in a way that saves the company a certain amount of losses. Okay, it can be a loss. You kind of rationalize raw materials, so the cost of the amount of money you spend on raw material comes down. When you are talking of, there's something, the two things that you've spoken about, customer queries. If you've optimized the process in some way where the customer queries have come down, you found a way to service the customers in a way where complaints and queries have come down. Very easy to quantify. You can say that the complaints came down by 20%. And obviously, what happens when complaints come down? It saves time and bandwidth and man hours for people who are addressing them, right? So you can there are ways to quantify them. You can reach out to us and we can help you identify those. There's just one more question, Manan, that I will take before you plunge into the
Oh,
link piece. Okay.
absolutely.
Regarding international experience, I have worked with US and EU clients, and in my current version, I have mentioned names of clients. Is that all right or considered a breach of info? So here's the thing. If your company or the clients are okay with it, you can go ahead and mention the clients. There's absolutely no problem with naming clients. But if there are certain confidentiality clauses, please do not breach any of those clauses. You can just you can frame it differently. Instead of saying Nike, you can say a very large shoe and apparel company, or a $10 billion shoe and apparel company. Okay, and that's how you can frame it. All right. Let's go into the LinkedIn piece, Manan.
All right, thanks, Anju. All right, so guys, here's how someone could be sabotaging their MBA application online, right? So let's talk about the LinkedIn piece. So while LinkedIn is not an official component of your application, but in today's day and age, it's imperative that you have a LinkedIn profile, an updated, well-populated profile, and essentially anyone could look you up, like anyone in the adcom. Essentially, if they want, they can look you up online. So it's important that you have a well-populated profile which is updated and it's consistent with the sort of application that you've put forth, right? So it should be consistent with the narrative that you've put in the application, with your resume. So make sure that you are very careful about that. All the dates, names, etc. are consistent. um, and another aspect of our LinkedIn is, one is, of course, someone, when they look at your LinkedIn, it provides an additional color and context into your candidature, right? Another very important aspect of LinkedIn is that it is very helpful in your business school research phase, right? So you would be reaching out to potential people, alums or current students of your target schools, and often people would check your profile before accepting a request. So if you have a well populated profile, it will it would improve your response rate, and it would help you in having a more effective business school research as well. So absolutely, you should work on updating your LinkedIn, and you should not ignore this part of your process. Now, I will, just
Manan,
very
we
briefly,
have about 8 minutes, so you'll
eight
have to.
minutes. Yes, I'll be quick. Don't worry. And I will just, guys, here I'll provide you like a few tips and a few wins that you can sort of achieve in your LinkedIn in a quick 30-minute effort, essentially, right? So a few things that you should look at. One is the headline. So updating your headline, which is the line right below your name. So you should essentially, what you should be looking to do is, of course, put in your current title where you are, and also put in your value. What do I mean by value? Value essentially means like any sort of professional brand or any sort of professional um, aspect about you that you would want people to think about you, like in terms of whether it's a area of expertise, in terms of a domain area, or maybe it's like your future aspiration, like some sort of a career goal that you have post MBA. So talk about something that that you would want people to associate you with professionally, right? Summary. So again, have a brief summary section, like 4 5 lines is enough. Again, highlight how many years of experience you had, if you worked across cross-border projects, if you work with teams which from different regions, highlight that. And again, highlight what was the value you created for your clients, for your organization. And of course, you should put in some high level metrics there as well, just to again make it more effective, and just for the person who's reviewing your or looking at your summary, he gets a sense of the amount of impact you've created. Profile picture, have a picture where you're wearing professional attire, high resolution picture. The background should be neutral, like just like a solid very light background or white background. Don't click a picture where you're in a social setting out in um, like in a cafe or somewhere. Have like a professional picture, and that's something that I'm sure that it gives, that's the first impression someone would have about you when they look at your LinkedIn. Skills is another section that you should look to highlight. Here again, instead of having like a laundry list of skills, what I would encourage you to do is pick out 5 to 7 unique skills, essentially skills which are relevant to you in terms of the work that you do right now, the sort of skills which would be relevant to your post MBA goals. So those are the skills that you should be looking to highlight here, right? And again, you should be giving more preference to soft skills over technical skills. Technical skills is not the focus here, right? So like, I mean, if I'm proficient in
It's not a
MATLAB, if I'm proficient
differentiator. It's
proficient
not a
in R,
differentiator.
yeah, yeah, those tech tools you don't need to put in your skills. Yeah. Cultivate a network. Again, you should connect with potential people who are in your area of interest, and again, engage with them. And key achievements features, again, make sure that you are highlighting your key responsibilities, key achievements in each of your roles, and any work that you have in the public domain. You should add that so people have visibility to that. And this is just something that you can do in a quick 30-minute session, and you'll have your LinkedIn in a very, very good shape once apply these things. One quick tip: while you're doing these things, just make sure that the notifications are off when you're making these changes, so that your network does not get bombarded with continuous changes. So just make sure that that setting is off while you're making these changes. So yeah, those were some quick tips to improve your
May
LinkedIn
I just
profile.
add something, Manan?
Absolutely.
Okay, so
Absolutely, Anju.
most schools do ask for your LinkedIn profile, okay? And so you will have to provide that link. For some it's mandatory, for some it's optional, but it's always good to put your LinkedIn profile. It's a great way for adcoms to, you know, get another perspective on you and to learn a little more about you. There's another thing that I want to add here. The LinkedIn has a section called Add to Profile. Please use that section. There are a lot of subsegments there. You can upload your publications, your certifications, the courses that you've done. You can get recommendations from people. You can add any awards or honors. You can add your test scores, the languages that you know. So it really has tremendous scope to tell the reader or the viewer a lot more about you than just basic information. Right. Manan?
All right. So yeah, this brings us to the end of our session. I hope you guys found it useful. And here's a QR code that you can scan to book an appointment with us. So there we can have a more personalized discussion with you. So if you have any other doubts right now, any lingering doubts, how can we help you in your MBA application process? Definitely, you reach out to us, scan this, book an appointment with us. You can also reach out to us at our contact information if you want, like our email ID or our mobile number, and we look forward to interacting with you guys and helping you out on your application journey. um, yeah, and if any other questions anyone has, we have a good 3 minutes, we can
Yeah,
potentially
so we
help you
have a
with that.
couple of minutes. We are open to answering a few more questions. I'm
Absolutely.
glad that you found our responses useful, Ravi and Re-Addicted AF. Uh, It was a pleasure doing this session today. Manan and I really enjoyed this. If you have any questions, please do reach out to us. Our contact details. Take a screenshot of this. Our phone number and email ID are mentioned here. Please do follow us on LinkedIn and our YouTube handle. We still have 2 minutes, so I'm going to wait to see if there are any more questions.
Yeah, and do reach out to us. We have some offers still for our applicants. And yeah, round one is quite close, guys. So we do not have a lot of there's limited sort of bandwidth that we have remaining. So yeah, please do reach out to us if you're planning to apply to if you're looking to target round one or round two. Yeah, we look forward to interacting with you and helping you out
Supporting
in your
you in
journey.
any way we
Yeah,
can.
it's always great to interact with you guys on a one-on-one basis as well, because there one is, of course, we also, while we try to help you, provide you some insights to your queries, also we get to understand different journeys. So it's always a pleasure interacting with people and getting diverse perspectives. So yeah, we will definitely look forward to having some of you guys reach out to us and interact with us. And
Hearing from you. Yeah. We do provide a free half an hour consult, so you can book the consult. And I'm going to go back on the slide
to the
that
QR code, yeah.
yeah, the
Yeah.
QR code, so that you can scan the code. Right, we are on the dot. Thank you so much for joining from wherever you've joined today. It was a pleasure doing this session, and we look forward to connecting with you. Do reach out to us if you have any doubts, questions, or queries, or you need support with your applications or parts of your application.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.